You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome Collin Williams, founder and chairman at New Era ADR. Collin is making litigation less painful and less expensive. He's a founder, investor, advisor, innovation seeker. Collin's also a board member and a strong mental health advocate. Collin's in Breckenridge, Colorado. How are you?
I am doing great, Ben. How are you?
Good. Did I get everything in there?
You got a lot in there. It
Yeah.
makes me sound more important than I am.
Oh, you are. I mean, look, man. I was looking at the LinkedIn and looking good. You've done a lot of stuff and made some important transitions in your life, and I'm looking forward to kind of talking about that tonight too.
I think it's because I'm old.
No, probably older than you. But so anyway. Thanks for coming on the show. It's great to have you. I know we chatted, a few weeks back. That was awesome, and I think what you're doing is pretty cool and interesting, especially with like integrating sports and stuff like that into the New Era ADR. So, how'd you end up in Colorado, though? Like, what? Like, you don't have to give me like the whole. I want to go through your story kind of slow, but like, what's the gist of Colorado? Like, are you from there or no?
No. I mean, so there's two parts to it. Out of college, I did the ski bum thing.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was out here for 2 years. And then I lived in Chicago for a very long period of time. And the pandemic hit. Chicago
Okay.
had a pretty rough time, like a lot of cities.
Yeah.
And we had some investment properties out here. My wife wanted to get out of Chicago, and I don't blame her. So we were kind of figuring out, do we go to another city or do we just go where we've got some properties? So we just packed our stuff and moved to Colorado and been here 3 years. But no family out here, no connections out here other than, we both spent time out of college and just kind of fell in love with the state. And here we sit.
That's wicked cool. I know it could be tough sometimes with the kids too, not having connections or family members. We know that.
Yes.
But that's awesome. Congrats on being out there. Is it like skiing? Are you still able to be a ski bum like all year round or what?
Well, definitely not all year round. I guess during the summer, you're kind of a bike bum.
Okay.
But don't get to do nearly as much as when I really was a ski bum. But the reality is, like, I still get to ski more than 99% of the planet. So that's good enough for me.
It's like year round there, right?
So we're close to Arapahoe Basin. Arapahoe Basin usually closes right around the 4th of July.
Okay.
So after the 4th of July, then up through November is usually when the resorts open back up.
Okay.
So almost, nine months of the year, it's pretty much going on. But, the summer is amazing. There's mountain biking and all sorts of fun
Really?
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I tried skiing a few times, and then the last time I went to a mountain with somebody, I decided to just stay in the lodge the whole time at the bar. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's not so bad either.
what's that? It's not bad,
Not so
right?
bad either.
So, we recently shared your lawyer story on social media. So, like, when was it that you actually thought, like, you wanted to be a litigator and go to court? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, my story is kind of interesting. Well, I guess it's kind of standard Chicago, right? So I grew up in basically an Irish Catholic family. And in the Chicagoland area, if you're Irish Catholic, there's two paths, right? There's white collar and blue collar. If you're white collar, you go to medical school or law school. If you're blue collar, you become a policeman or a fireman.
Okay.
Uh, and so I took the path. My brother always wanted to be a doctor. He ended up becoming a doctor.
Wow.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So if you look at those three paths, the one that made the most sense to me was being a lawyer. And I just equated being a lawyer with being a litigator. I never thought
Right.
about family law lawyer or being, trust and estates or corporate or anything like that. I just thought you go to court. That's what you do. So when I started going down the path of law school, I just figured I'll be a litigator. And that was really that's what I had seen. And that's what I thought lawyers did.
Was it
So
like TV or something where you would just the movies like you would just see like lawyers standing up looking cool and like wearing
yeah.
Armani suits and that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the greatest thing? You watch movies and you're like, this is not what it's
No,
like.
I know, I know.
But yeah, I remember as a little kid, I remember seeing episodes of LA Law,
There you go.
and thinking, wow, that looks pretty cool. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
go to court and argue and do stuff like that. I didn't realize that, being a litigator is a lot of pushing paper. But that's just what I had in my mind. I didn't know anything else about being a lawyer. So I just figured you become a litigator. So, once I made the path to decided that I was going to go down the path of law school, it was litigation. I never really thought about much else.
So what was your law school experience like?
Oh, it was awesome. So,
Really?
yes,
Okay.
which is probably not the response you get a lot, but I
No,
went
but
to
I
two.
will say, I'll stop right there. I will say that people do say, well, sometimes they're like, well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And like,
Yeah,
you don't hear that a lot with like doctors. You know what I mean? It's mostly the legal profession that I feel like we do get that. Because you get really smart people like that are just like, they don't really know. And then they're just like, okay, law school. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think there's this misconception that people think, oh well, doctors, you go and you become a doctor and you make a lot of money, and to a certain extent, that's true, right?
Yep.
But people think that same thing about being a lawyer, and that's not true.
Right.
So I think
That's
people think
true.
it's, yeah, I mean, I think people think it's like the path of least resistance and a good way to make a living. But the reality is, it's actually a really hard way to make a living. And, when you think of people who work in large law firms, that's like, what, 5% of people, maybe
Right.
probably less, who
True.
graduate law school. So, I mean, you should really know that going in. If you think that this is a great way to just go make tons of money, it's not. And so it isn't apples to apples with being a doctor, but I think lots of people going in thinks that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like one of the most traditional professions, right? Like doctor, lawyer, and then like clergyman or whatever, like the priest
Yeah.
or something like that. Um, okay. So you said your law school experience was great. Like, what made it so good?
I went to law school in New Orleans.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You went to Tulane, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I went
Okay.
to
Well, that,
Tulane.
that
So
explains it. All right. I
it
got you.
explains it all, right? You don't need to say anything else. But that really, I mean, that really was it. First of all, I thought the school was great. I really thought they had the curriculum buttoned up. The teachers were great.
Okay.
Classes weren't painful, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I treated law school like a job. I would
Yep.
show up at the school at 8 and I would leave at 5.
That's
And
good.
then my Saturdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays were my own time. And we had plenty of good time in New Orleans. So,
So,
and
did you take any time off after undergrad or no?
yeah, I took 2 years off.
Okay,
Yep.
so did you think that? So one thing I noticed when I got to law school, like I'll never forget going to like the grocery store the week before like law school started and just thinking, oh my gosh, like if I want to get this assignment done, like by 10 o'clock tonight, I have to get out of here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
So like, did you feel like taking a couple years off helped you with like time management, like 8 to 5 type stuff? Because I think some people do go in there and try to treat it like an 8 to 5, and I could see that now 100%.
Yeah, it definitely helped with that. I think the biggest thing for me, if you told me that I would have gone to Tulane at 17 or 18 years old, I would have failed out, right? Or probably be dead.
You dead? Wow, what were you doing out there, man?
Just drinking all the time, right? But I didn't have any conception at 17 or 18 years
Yeah.
old how to control that and handle like my other responsibilities. So having been out of, college for 2 years and worked, and I worked a lot. I mean, it was all blue collar stuff. I was a landscaper and
Okay.
did construction. I was a ski patroller and did all this other stuff.
Oh wow.
I learned how to work. And so that gave me good perspective on like, this is the period of time that I'm going to do the stuff I need to do. And then I'm going to have fun outside of the time, but I'm not going to interfere with the period of time that I have to get stuff done. So I would say, yeah, being out 2 years gave me a lot of perspective, particularly having worked blue collar jobs and saying, hey, I don't want to do landscape construction.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So I better work hard at this because if
Yeah.
that's the fallback, I mean, it's all the respect in the world to them. It is incredibly hard to get up
It
every day and
is.
rocks and dig ditches and stuff like
No, it
that.
is. I mean, where I work, we have a maintenance team, and I give them all the respect, and I tell them, look, I couldn't do this.
No, no
So
way.
that's totally understandable. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how you'd get up the next morning, like to study, like when you're out in New Orleans. I've been there once for a bachelor party, maybe 15 years ago, but you know what would have been cool if you took out the biggest book out of, we'll get into the important stuff soon, but take out, and I don't know, I might have heard this or lived this a little, but you take out the biggest, law book you have, like say it's torts, you go walking downtown, go up to a group of girls and you say, excuse me, do you know where the appellate courtroom is?
Yeah.
That way they, anyways, I might have to edit that out. So anyway,
I would have failed at that anyhow. It's fine.
that's amazing. All right, so you grew up in Chicago, Tulane Law, great law school. You had a lot of fun there. Obviously, you did well. Um, and so I think you already touched on, like you said in your lawyer story that litigation has very little to do with advocacy or
Yeah.
being in court. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of it was my vision, right? Which, like I said, I thought litigators are in court all the time. I mean, that's what you do, right? You go to court. I mean, here's the reality, and this is not to disparage the profession or say anything bad about litigation. It is what it is. But you go to court. I mean, if you're a litigator and you go to court 20 times a year, that's a lot. If you
Yeah,
have a trial, that's astonishing. Um,
right.
so I just learned that litigation is really more about the process than it is about the advocacy and the actual being in court and advocating, right? And that's not to say you write lots of things that involve advocacy, but that really to me was like a small part of it. Like once I learned what discovery was,
Yeah,
that's when I learned this isn't all about like going to
yeah.
the judge and arguing your points. So
Oh my
um,
goodness. I know, like, did you sit down to do some interrogatories and you were like, oh, screw it. I mean, forget this, right? I
I
mean,
mean,
that's that.
It's the amount of interrogatories, requests for production, and the greatest one is request to admit, right? So you're basically writing a sentence and saying, I want the other side to say this is true. They're never going to say it's true.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
right.
Admit that you were there on this date and this. No, no, that I'm going to object because
Yeah.
that's vague. Like,
But there's also something about you though, like throughout kind of doing some due diligence, like you're an entrepreneur, man. Like, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, right?
yeah,
So like
yeah.
where do you think that came from?
Definitely my parents. My dad started his own business, and I can remember there was a lot of tension in the household around that time. Obviously, two kids, and you need to support them. He started it probably when I was around 8. And if my dad listens to this and I'm wrong on that, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
remember generally when he started the business, and he ran it for 40 plus
What
years.
kind of a business?
It was actually he was an electronic sales rep, so he repped big manufacturers of electronic components and basically sold them. He was kind of the guy in the middle who actually got them to the end consumers. Um, and he did it for 40 years. He was successful at it. I didn't grow up in a world where, I mean, I remember him working for large companies when I was really little, but the majority of my life he worked for himself. So that was just kind of ingrained in me that
Yeah,
that's what you do. You don't necessarily work for Microsoft or whatever it is. You kind of figure out what you might be good at and go down that path. And you know, in general, it is, I think, very, very fulfilling. When I was a little kid, I didn't realize how difficult it was. So I have a lot of respect looking back at my dad and all the things he went through, and the fact that he hid the difficulties from us. It
yeah,
never seemed like it was that hard,
right.
because I think he purposely made it seem that way. Now, living it, I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah.
something, and
So
that's where it came from.
so do you think if you like something or have an interest in it, you'll do better at it, you'll excel at it
I don't think there's any doubt that if you're interested in something, you'll do better at it. I
better?
think when it comes to work, the best job I've ever had was being a ski patroller, right? Like I got to ski for a living. I didn't make a
Yeah.
lot of money, but I get to ski and I get to help people, and that was very, very satisfying. Doing things in the law, I think you have to find things that maybe are the lesser of certain evils.
Yeah.
Uh, so what I do, I love my team. I love what we're doing. I love what we're accomplishing. Do I necessarily love like arbitration and mediation? Probably not. But I find it interesting that we're trying to change the way that people look at these things.
Okay.
That's what I really, really find satisfying. But if you told me I could go be, a musician, yeah, I would probably choose that instead.
Okay, interesting. So And so you have the entrepreneurial spirit, and talking about Tulane and going out and stuff like that. I mean, obviously you did really well at in law school because you worked for like a year doing products liability, and then you were into big law, right? Like, so how did that transition happen after a year? Like 1 year at a smaller firm, maybe, and
You're
then
big now. Yeah.
you're big now, but then you went into like a really well known
Yes. Yeah.
big law firm, and you were there for a while.
Close to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my path to Butler Snow was an interesting one. Butler Snow at the time was maybe 5 offices, maybe 150 lawyers, something like that.
Okay.
Now I think they're like 30 offices and 700 lawyers.
Wow.
But so I had two opportunities. One was to go back to Chicago and work for a firm that did like reinsurance work, which I can tell you there's nothing stimulating about. And my other opportunity was to go to Mississippi and work for Butler Snow, which is a great law firm that had all sorts of interesting work. And I loved the people. I really, really loved the people. So I just had this idea in my head, like, you know what, John Grisham books. I'll wear white, seersucker suits and sweat a lot, and be
That's
in
awesome.
court. So I just decided it was worth, kind of a shot. Like I'll go
Yep.
to Mississippi, I'll do something different. I know what Chicago is. I can always go back. So spent the year in Mississippi, loved the people, loved the firm. Socially, I was just a misfit. And by that, I mean, I was a Northerner, so everybody thought I had the accent. And the reality is everybody in Mississippi gets married very young. They marry their high school sweethearts. There was not a lot of like single guys to go do stuff with. There wasn't a lot of single girls to date.
Yep.
So socially, it was a very, very difficult place for me to live. So I spent a year and then I had an opportunity to go to Greenberg Traurig in Chicago. And I just said, well, this could be a very difficult professional move going to a really, really large law firm. They have their reputations, but socially, I just needed something more. I was literally traveling every weekend to get out of Mississippi,
Wow.
because Mississippi was bad, but just because there was nothing for me to do.
Mississippi. Why did you go out there? They transfer you out there? I must have missed that.
No, I mean, that was their main office. So
Wow.
it was basically like you could be in Gulfport, Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, and the need was in Jackson. So I didn't know that much about Jackson. I had a
Yeah.
pretty good time there when I was a summer associate and just figured, what the hell? Like I said, I love Butler Snow. They're great people. It was a great experience. But at the end of the day, sort of home was calling me. And yeah, I wanted like a better social aspect to my life than
Yeah.
just a law firm. So
Yeah.
that transitioned me out back to Chicago.
So was Big Law just what they say it is? You were working like 100 hours a week and all that, and the snack cart comes by at 6 o'clock and offers you dinner. And
I never had a bed in my office. I will say Greenberg was, I think, it probably about as good of an experience in big law as you can have.
okay.
So, and by that, we didn't overstaff cases. I got very substantive experience from day one of walking into the firm. I never had, I definitely had some late nights, definitely had long days, definitely had weekends. It wasn't consistent, right? So I wasn't there, 100 hours a week every week and doing stuff like that. But it's hard. I would say a relatively, as great as Greenberg is, as great as the attorneys are, everybody was, friendly and helpful. It's still a very thankless environment.
Yeah.
The work is hard. The clients are unrelenting. They expect something.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the best way to describe it. It's thankless. And for, doing it for 10 years and not getting a lot of this sort of gratification out of what you're doing and working hard at it, it's a hard life. And obviously they compensate people really well, and some people love it and they're really good at it, and good for them. God bless them. I think that's awesome. For me, it was great experience, and I learned how to be a lawyer, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
Did I see myself there for 35 or 40 years? No, never.
Was that the place where you had like a 6-year case that was $1 million and you never got to share the story of the case? Was that? So it was just a lot of litigation, pushing papers back and forth and stuff like that. Not to simplify it, but
Yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, I had a case that literally got dropped on my desk like the first week I was there and was still going on when I left. So
awesome.
it had lasted 10 years. The case that's sort of the story about New Era, I was there for the first 3 years of it. And then
Yeah.
I left and went to Oracle and did other things. And that case continued on. And it's actually when that case ended, it was my friend who was the actual client called me afterwards and said, this can't be how this works.
So your
So
friend was the client of the case that you had dropped on you the first week of.
no, those are two different cases.
Okay.
So the one that lasted 6 years was a friend, and then the
Okay.
one that lasted 10 years was just another, like one of my
Gotcha.
corporate clients, and
Gotcha.
just dragged on forever and ever and ever. And it was, like I said, it was on my desk when I started. 9 years and 8 months later, when I left, it was still going on.
Wow. That's wild. So you made a transition to like corporate counsel roles.
Yep.
What made you decide to do that?
I mean, a couple of things. So I knew I wanted to go in-house, and I wanted to get out of litigation, right? So Oracle was a very logical transition for me, which was more of a transactional environment, a tech company, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of cut off my litigating and
Mhm.
move into something completely different. That's hard, right? After 10 years to tell somebody I no longer want to do what I've been doing for 10 years,
Right.
people go, why? And how do you even do that? I was very fortunate that my two bosses at Oracle were former litigators.
Mm.
And so when I went through the interview process, I told them I don't have any experience doing what you guys do.
Right.
They both said, well, neither did we, so we'll teach
Right.
it. Um,
That's
so that
good.
was really, I wanted to get out of litigation. I wanted to go in-house and I wanted to learn what that looked like.
And that's like empathy too, right? Like what you experienced maybe from the people, the guys at Oracle, and that's been a big part of New Era ADR and sort of like what like your core belief system, I think. So I wanted to actually jump into like your idea to launch New Era ADR and like where did that come from?
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. That client who was a friend was really sort of the catalyst, right?
Mm.
So there was a match there was a match sitting there and he lit it. And it was really that conversation I had. Once again, I was gone, but the case finally ended. It literally settled on the morning of trial. So after 6 years, they got to the point where they were walking into the courtroom to handle this. They walked into a conference room and ended up hashing it out, right? And for what I would say is pretty nominal sums of money. And when he called me and said, time out, like for 6 years, I've been going through this. And, we finally got to the point where neither of us could take it anymore. So we settled it. But here's the problem. At no point during this whole process has anybody asked me what happened. And he would show up to every court hearing. Didn't matter how nominal it was. Didn't matter if I told him, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. You don't need to come. He would show up because I think he thought at some point the judge would say, you know, Carl, what happened? Like, what's the story here?
So
Six
like
years.
how do you are you talking about like the judge never asked him? Like you never got to say the or the attorneys or the judge, obviously, right?
Judge, the judge,
Okay. So he never got to like share his story in open court.
not a single time. Um, and that wasn't like this isn't disparaging the judge. This is the process. So
Right.
that's what I had a real hard time explaining to him is like, look, if you're looking for that cathartic moment where you're going to tell somebody this is what happened to me, you're probably not going to get it. And I think people who have never been involved in litigation really struggle with that because they watch TV too, right?
Mm.
There's somebody sitting up on the stand and saying, here's what happened to me. Well,
Yeah.
when do I get to do that? And
Right.
it's really hard to tell them you might never get to do that. So
It was
that was
all behind the scenes sort of like work like that, right? And so you said they settled for nominal. I mean, was it more in legal fees than it was even the
oh
actual
my God. It was
settlement?
he spent 7 figures in legal fees,
Wow.
and the settlement was 5 figures.
Wow. Okay.
So you think about that for a second and
That's
say,
that's crazy. And then, income, you're like, okay, well, new era ADR, I have this idea. We need to kind of streamline this thing. I mean, in a way,
that
right?
was really it. And you think about it, and it's like, I ran that case for 3 years, and then I gave it to my boss, who was the most ethical, still like my mentor, one of the best lawyers I've ever met. He did not grind that file, right? He did not staff it with 10 people and build the hell out of it. Like this was the most nominal amount of work that could have been done and still came out to 7 figures. So that's when I started thinking, you know what, this is a process thing. This
And what are
isn't
they doing? And this, I'm sorry, was this Greenberg or the other, the
this is
other?
it was
Okay.
me.
So
Yep.
what are they doing? Like just motion back and forth and like this and
Yep.
this and that? Yeah.
Yep. And the reality is the rules allow for that to happen. So, I've always kind of viewed judges as referees, and they can sit there and watch this stuff happen. But the reality is that the rule says you can make a motion, the rule says you're allowed this amount of discovery, then that gets to happen.
Right.
It doesn't matter that the judge may be sitting up there and saying, I don't need any of this. This is stupid because you're allowed to do it by the rules. And so when New Era started becoming an idea, I kept thinking, well, why isn't the arbitrator slash judge running this process? Why aren't they the ones who are saying, forget all these rules. Here's what I need to make a decision. So that's what's important. What's not important is you guys battling back and forth for years. And that's kind of what drove the way that New Era was formed, and the purpose behind it is like, let's rethink this. Like,
Okay.
this is about the clients and this is about the stories. It's not about the paper. It's not about the motions. It's not about the discovery. So I think at some point we've just kind of forgotten what the legal system was supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the people who are engaging in it and solving problems.
So we
And
kind of led
that's
into
kind of,
it, through your experience, but just tell us, just so we can get it like clear on here, like what is New Era ADR, and like what was the first step you took to create it?
yeah, I mean, New Era ADR is we're basically an alternative dispute resolution provider, so arbitration and mediation. But we do things differently. Number one, we don't have, gobs of rule books. We don't have volumes and volumes of rule books. So we're arbitrator driven. Like I said, we have the arbitrator saying, here's what I need to see, get me what I need to see. We do everything virtually. We build all our own platforms. We're a tech company. We're SOC 2. We don't offshore anything. We have our own dev and product team. So we build platforms that drive the process, right?
Okay.
And we do everything on flat fees because we want everybody to be incentivized to get things done quickly and not to be incentivized to drag things out.
Got it.
So if you have a flat fee and you're not getting paid any more money, regardless how long it takes, you become a lot more efficient. So
True.
I mean, if you look at us, we really are a tech company. We're reimagining arbitration and mediation and bringing it kind of into the 21st century. If I can do a doctor's visit online, telehealth was something that really, really inspired me. If
Yeah.
I can do a
Okay.
doctor's visit online, why can't I do, legal proceeding online?
So
So
go ahead.
no, that was really like when I think back of what I really wanted this to be, telehealth was the thing that I thought that is so cool.
When you saw it in COVID too, like that, they were doing like cases and motions online as well. Like that was sort of, I don't know where you were with like starting the.
Well, COVID was kind of I will say the gasoline that got poured on the fire.
Okay.
So the idea has existed for more than 10 years. It's something that's been rattling around my brain for a long time. Pre-COVID, people basically told me it'll never work. Like that's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? Like legal proceedings need to be in person. Then COVID hit, right? And all of a sudden, you don't have a choice.
And you were like, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you it would work, right?
Well, it is interesting, and I promise I did not start COVID. I always tell everybody that COVID
I
doesn't
know you
exist.
didn't. What's
Yeah,
that? Sorry.
no, I was gonna say if COVID doesn't exist, I don't know if we have a business.
Okay.
So the reality is when everybody got forced into doing proceedings online, the cool thing was the idea was always to be that. So while everybody else was scrambling and trying to figure out how do we do this, we had built the team and we had started down this path and we're like, well, we're building a platform that was always made to do this.
Were you a
So
little nervous that it would just become commonplace and then like it would sort of drown out what you were trying to do? Or no,
I
is that too simplistic of a view?
no, I actually think that's a very logical view, maybe outside of the legal arena, right? So I never discount the ability for the vertical of the law to go back to what's tried and true. So this is not, and once again, not to knock it, this is not an innovative profession. It's just not.
Well, no, what I'm
We
saying is like if everybody's like on Zoom, appearing
Yeah,
in front of judges and filing their motions and everything, like it started like were you sort of like, okay, well, I just started this business that was exactly this, but now they're doing this, and so like how do I make New Era ADR relevant when they're already
yeah,
doing this? Like, you know what I mean?
yeah. I think the key for me was number one, I think there is that idea that I always believed that everybody would want to go back to what they know and what was comfortable. particularly when you're looking at organizations that have existed for 100 years, 70 years, whatever it may be.
Okay,
They
gotcha,
make
gotcha.
they've made a very good living doing things a certain way.
Yep.
So I always believed that there would always be that push to go back to doing these other things. The other reality is, as I watched it, I said, this is so disjointed. Like you're cobbling together technologies and doing things to try and get by. You're
Yeah.
not trying to actually create platforms that make this easier. You're trying to survive until COVID ends.
And it was
And
actually good because it's like COVID was the proof that it would work too.
yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So I think it was actually like a good thing for you guys. Like, you know what I mean?
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
people didn't have a choice. But as you watched it, you sat there and thought, wow, you guys aren't even doing this very well.
Right.
So, and that's the other thing is I think people realize, well, this works. So I've always told people if you looked at COVID as like the baseline, this is as bad as it's ever going to be. And it works pretty well. So just think of what it could be now that we're actually thinking about how we do it.
Right.
And but once again, if you look at the law, it's not a super innovative profession. And so I just thought this is our opportunity. We can be innovative. We can be a driver of doing really new things because there's been this period of time where people said, "Oh crap, that could happen again." So yeah, I mean, COVID was definitely the gasoline poured on the fire.
Okay.
Um,
That's interesting. Yeah. So what was like your first move like to get the thing off the ground? Like was it talking to tech companies to sort of like build the platform?
it was team, right?
Team, okay.
So we built sort of the co-founding team, and
Gotcha.
that was when ideas started to spiral, right? And I think we always had a kind of a general idea of what we wanted to do and what the vision would be and what the platform would look like. So you sort of get some people together, and then we built a team of advisors, and that helps people have different ideas. That's sort of just the beginning catalyst. Then the reality is, and I think for a lot of startups, you got to raise money.
Yeah.
And that was a stressful time, right? Are we going to be able to raise money? Do people think this is a good enough idea that they're going to give us cash to actually fund it? And we were successful, like pretty much from day one.
Wow.
Friend, family jumped in, and we wanted to raise, $500,000, and we ended up raising like 1.3 million.
Wow.
And we got a couple of VC funds in who took a leap of faith and said, "We're in, we'll support you guys." And that's when I thought, "Oh wow, this is a thing."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is, it's time to quit our jobs and get this thing rolling. Um, so it was less about like the product and stuff. This is where startups go to die. Startups build a product that they think is super, super cool. They've never asked anybody whether or not they want it, whether or not it's going to solve problems. And then they show up and say, "Look at my product and how super cool it is." And
Right.
they say, "I don't care. Congratulations." That
Yeah.
doesn't do anything for me. So I think we took a better tact, which was, all right, we've got an idea. We're going to raise some money. Then we're going to figure out what this thing needs to look like and who's going to be interested in it and build from there. And I think that's, a better way to go about a startup.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's an awesome story, like, and a good explanation for that. So tell me, like, who's coming to you now? Like, when somebody has like a legal problem, like, who's giving you a call, like, to use your services?
Yeah. I mean, we're still mostly commercial stuff. You mentioned we do some sports stuff, which is really, really interesting. At the end of the day, who we tend to find as customers are businesses, people, executives, whoever it may be, that have been through the litigation process and said, "I don't ever want to do that again." Right?
Okay.
That was a distraction for me. It's not, at the end of the day, and I think we as lawyers always need to keep this in mind. Businesses don't make money by litigating. So if you always keep that in your head and say, "I have to remind myself that my client doesn't make money by litigating." So every time I'm talking to them on the phone, they're stressed out, they're pissed off, they're spending money. That's something that I think just needs to jiggle around in your head all the time as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so when I think about who our clients are and who we want to go get, it's who has been through this experience, who hated it,
Right.
and now they say, "I don't want to do that again." And that's, I think, there's generalities about verticals that we get into and what kind of businesses are sort of our ICP. But if you really boil this down, if you can get in front of somebody who says, "Yeah, I've been through all sorts of litigation, never want to do it again," that's who I'm looking to talk to.
Okay. That's interesting. So and is it just arbitration or is it mediation as well?
We do mediation too. Yep,
So
lots of mediation.
why do you think like arbitration was created? Like, what's the purpose of it compared to like mediation?
Well, we can go back to like the early 1900s.
History. Yeah, give
Yeah,
us
I
the
can, I
history.
can tell you all sorts of stories about this. But yeah, I mean, arbitration is actually a creation. It goes back to Europe, where people were just trying to solve basic commercial disputes without having to go to court.
Mhm.
So that sounds like such a basic concept. That's really where this came from. The US adopted it, same thing, right? You're looking at merchants who have disputes who don't want to go through the court process. So that was kind of how the ball started rolling. And then, the FAA, the Federal Arbitration Act, is enacted, which really codifies it as something to be done. But you have to remember the reason this was created is because people did not want to go to court. It was not supposed to look like court. It was not supposed to mirror those processes. It was supposed to be simpler, faster, less expensive, right? And I think, unfortunately, over time, it has looked more and more and more like court.
Really?
So it's really, when you think about New Era fundamentally, what we're trying to do is go back to what arbitration was always supposed to be and why it was created.
Hmm.
And that's what people wanted. You talk about alternative dispute resolution, shouldn't it be an alternative?
Right.
It
What?
look exactly like what you can get out of court. Um, so, I mean, I mean, we could go into the history of this whole thing. It would not be exciting for a podcast. But in the very like broad strokes, that's how this whole thing got started, was people were looking for something different, and Congress eventually codified it. And here we sit today. But unfortunately, I think we've gone pretty far astray from what people thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and so like you hear the word arbitration thrown around like a lot in baseball and sports and like with
Yeah.
contracts. Like, what's the current state of arbitration in the U.S.? Like, what's the market like to get a case? Like, is it arbitrated or arbitrate? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Arbitrated. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it just feels like people wouldn't be like, I want to get my case right. I feel like it needs more exposure, right?
I think that's right. And I think there's a lot of negative exposure around it right now. If you think about people who say, like, I'm getting forced into an arbitration clause, and that's bad, right? And I do think, I will tell this to anybody who will listen. The drafting of arbitration clauses has gone absolutely crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. Businesses started putting it in because they wanted class action waivers. Now, all of a sudden, you start looking at arbitration clauses that are 5 pages long that delineate everything that really are being created to try and eliminate all risk, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why you've gotten this bad reputation about what arbitration is. Here's the reality. If I told you as an employee, look, if you have a dispute against the company, I'm going to get you in front of an arbitrator and I'm going to get it resolved in a month. And your other option is to go to court and it won't be resolved in 2 years.
Wow.
So which would you choose? But now that's a very simplistic way to look at it. Now, if I say, well, I'm going to hand you an arbitration clause that says there's 6 million things you have to do before you can start your arbitration. And by the way, you're limited in these 100 different ways when you're actually in arbitration. Sure, you're going to be skeptical that that's good for you. So there is this idea that I think what we need to do is simplify and get back to what things are supposed to be, and then realize that's good for everybody. That's good for businesses, it's good for consumers, it's good for employees.
Now, when a case goes to arbitration, does each side have a lawyer with them if they want? Like, who presents their side? How does that usually work?
I mean, it's very much like a court proceeding. So I would say, yeah, 90% of the time, both sides are represented.
Okay.
So just from that standpoint, right? Like there's basically a plaintiff, there's basically a defendant. They have representation. There's an arbitrator who's the judge. You raise an interesting question though, which is access to justice. The truth is, when you look at court, it's very difficult for somebody who has limited means to engage in a court process. If you're a single mom working 3 jobs, how am I supposed to tell you you're supposed to get time off of that to go to
Right.
court? So that's another aspect of our platform where we say, look, we're all digital. Like if I can get you a phone or a computer, you can do this in a limited period of
Right.
time and
Amazing.
actually access it. And it won't cost you a ton of money. So our platform is actually built in a way that if you're an unrepresented party, it is simple enough that you can engage and walk through it. We don't
Wow.
suggest that. We think everybody should have representation if they can, but the reality is, like we do some Olympic disputes. Those athletes don't have money. So if they can't afford a lawyer, what are we supposed to tell them? That you're shit out of luck?
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't engage? Like, no, they need to be able to engage. So if my platform is simple enough that they can engage, I'm providing them access to justice. That's really important to us.
And like we talked about that case that took so long in, at when you were in big law and back and forth 10 years, and then it settled for like less than they spent on attorneys. So because there's rules in law that enable them to, do all the discovery, that sort of thing. So I guess my next question is, what's the evidence rules like in arbitration?
Yeah, well, I think it differs by organization, right?
Okay.
If you look at some of the traditional organizations that have existed for a very long time, they have extraordinarily fulsome books. You don't call it books anymore, but online rules and procedures. I
Hmm.
mean, we're talking volumes and volumes that may differ depending on what kind of case it is. We're very different from that, right? Like I said, we're arbitrator driven. So I don't want you to be able to look at a rule book and say, I'm going to be able to take these three rules and manipulate them and make this a painful process for the other side. Or I don't want you to be a lawyer, or worse, this is unethical, obviously. I don't want you to be a lawyer and say, look at how long I can drag this case out because I can rely on these rules and all this discovery. Um, we want the arbitrator to say, here's where I need to get to. Like, this is what I need to see to make a decision. So I'm going to drive that process. And you guys can come to me and say, I think I need X, Y, Z. And I'm going to tell you, well, I might need X and I might need Z, but I don't need Y. So I'm not going to let you do that.
Right.
Um, so it's, that's why I said when we look at what arbitration has become, there's a little bit of this, it's become too much like court. It mirrors too much of what people wanted to get away from. So I think that's the reality is that we have to rethink the way that this whole thing looks. It was never supposed to be this.
So what about the future state of arbitration here in the U.S.? What do you think it looks like in for the market in the future?
It looks digital, right? I
Yeah.
really think it's digital. And I think, you're interspersing AI. People always ask me, yeah, the two most fearsome letters in the alphabet. Um, People always ask me, do you think that AI is going to become the judge? And I will tell you, I think that may happen eventually.
Wow.
But the reality is right now, I mean, I think we're 10, 15 years away from it. And here's why. When people talk about getting involved in a legal process, you go back to the case that started this whole thing. The fact that my client never actually told this story to anybody was the biggest problem he had.
Mm.
So if we can give people the cathartic moment of telling their story to another person who listens and has some empathy, even if they get ruled against, they're probably going to be okay with the process. If you take all this information, put it in an algorithm and it spits out a decision, and that person goes, well, why'd I lose? And you tell them, I don't know. The algorithm said that you should lose. It's not going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
Now let's take it a step further. What if you have to take that arbitration decision and enforce it in court? So then the judge says, all right, well, here's the decision. How do we get to this? And everybody stares at each other and says, I don't know. We put it into an algorithm and AI spit out the decision.
Right.
How is that enforceable? So I think the future looks digital, and I think we're going to keep evolving and evolving and evolving. I don't think AI is going to change the game right now. I think it's going to make everything more efficient and better, but I don't think we're going to be telling AI judges, "Here's my story. What's the decision?"
Right.
For years.
Now is arbitration, it's binding, right? Like you can't you need to go to a judge to get or the court to get it enforced, like the judgment if or the decision if it's not
If
being
the other side isn't complying,
okay.
yeah,
If there's no
yep,
compliance. Okay. So tell us about how New Era ADR has been like sports centric, kind of. Like I know you've had some cool, interesting cases and
yeah.
arbitrations.
Well, I mean, as you can tell from behind me, so I'm a
Yeah.
former athlete and I love sports. And we've gotten involved the Olympic Committee was looking for, perhaps a different provider, put out an RFP. We dove in head first.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of, I would say, a lot of sports fans on the team, right? So, and some ex-athletes, and it's just an interesting thing. If you're a sports lover, you're a sports lover, right? And it looks like, are those baseball cards up there?
Those are actually that's the 1992 USA basketball team,
Hockey?
the Dream
Oh,
Team.
basketball team. There you go. I mean, but look, there's passion around sports, obviously. Um, so when you think about, when you talked about earlier, what interests you, well, if you can take what we do and mesh it together with sports, that's interesting, right? Um, and so we've tried to sort of build that practice. We've had some success with it. And it's not a big money maker, right? Like margins and doing sports stuff. Like I said, you talk about Olympic athletes, they don't have money. But there is this there's a great satisfaction in realizing you helped an athlete realize their dream. And it's just interesting stuff, right? It's a hell of a lot better than, and no offense to anybody who uses us for this stuff, but a commercial dispute where you're like, the contract says XYZ. Well, great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's important and I'm not discounting it. But when you talk about an athlete who wants to make like the bobsled team
Yeah.
and they have their opportunity taken away, or somebody hurt in a stadium because a baseball hit them in the head, um, that's just more interesting. So
Yeah.
um, I always want this to be a part of the business that we grow. And number one, I think we do good things. I think it really, really helps people, and it's interesting. And so even though it will never be the biggest revenue driver for us, it's something I don't ever want to see go away.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's amazing that you responded to an RFP. That must have been huge. Like that must have taken so much time
It
to put
was
together. I mean, especially like reading, like replying to like the scope of work and all that stuff must have been crazy.
it was crazy. It was really fun. It was fun to interact with. I think the key for us was that I think they saw the passion and that we really, really, really cared about this business
Okay.
and that we wanted to do it and we wanted to do it well. And I think probably a lot of the other folks who put in, their proposals were like, yeah, whatever. I mean, we can do
Yeah.
this, so that'd be
They
great.
must have gotten like hundreds of proposals.
I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know what the total amount was, but I think I am feel fairly certain that they could feel that this was important to us and we wanted to do it. And I would imagine the other providers are like, yeah, this will be a great little piece to our business and some
Yeah.
PR. And for us, it wasn't that. It was like, this is a big deal.
And they were
So
looking for arbitration or ADR type. Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
So do you guys seek out like RFPs and stuff like that to kind of get work that way? Like like people that are looking for ADR, like ADR and like a different
Yeah.
resolution tactic.
We're always having conversations, right? That's the best way I can put it.
Yeah,
You never know. And my boss at Reverb kind of taught me this. You never have any idea what little conversation or what link is going to take you down some path that's
I
amazing.
know. It's true.
Yeah, right? And most of them, it's a dead end and it's nothing and it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. But if you think about like, well, what effort did I have to put into that? So if I had a half an hour conversation and it didn't work out, big deal. I mean, at the end of the day, if I have a half an hour conversation, it results in something amazing, then that's great.
Yeah.
So I think for us, it's not like seeking out RFPs. It's constantly having conversations and having somebody who even might not be interested say, well, hold on a second. My friend down the road just got out of, 6 years of litigation. They don't want to do that again. Oh, cool. Do you connect me? So it's not like really like hunting things. It's really networking and having lots and lots of conversations and getting the word out that we exist and then figuring out who needs help.
And what is your jurisdiction? Like, where are you taking
All 50 states.
all 50 states?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, we literally can operate anywhere because we're virtual and we've got, arbitrators and mediators everywhere. We do not do international work. We've had lots of like very strange entities come to us and say,
Really?
the government of Singapore, like, hey, can you help us with a ADR platform? The reality is, those things sound interesting,
Might
but
be
this
worth a little trip out there, Colin.
yeah, yeah. Here's the thing though, I always keep in my mind, and the team is great about keeping this in their minds, is when you're always chasing those weird golden things, like the
Yeah.
new shiny new object, right?
Right.
That's how you ruin your business. So if you can't stay focused when you're our size and you're working and trying as hard to do what we're doing, if you don't stay focused, that will be the end. So if I started saying we're going to do stuff in Poland and Singapore, and then all of a sudden our domestic business starts to
Right.
flail,
Right.
and
Right.
we're gone, right?
Yeah.
So as interesting as that stuff sounds, we're just not in a position to go capitalize on it.
So it's got to be daunting, like trying to replace or add to the century old litigation system. So like, what has been like most effective in like winning over traditional legal institutions? Like, what tactics, like pilot program, partnership, thought leadership, like what's really like what has been successful?
I mean, I think you named a really important one, which is pilot programs.
Yep.
So we always encourage people like, look, you don't have to sign some 10-year agreement with us that locks you in. Like, hey, if you have a case that fits, come try the platform, right? We'll get you a great neutral. You can put everything on the platform, see how it works, and then at the end of the day, you can tell me if that was a terrible experience or it was a great one. And we haven't had many terrible experiences. I can't actually think of a single one we've had. So I think when you let people try it out, that's been really, really successful. I think there's also this element of having flat fees where people are
Yeah.
so used to the legal profession. Everybody who engages with the legal profession is so used to paying hourly, right? And that's very disconcerting because you can't budget for it, can't tell a CFO how much it's going to cost, can't tell a CEO when it's going to end. So when we tell you, look, it's one fee and we're going to get it done very, very quickly, that's really, really intriguing to people. So I think those are probably the two biggest things that, being able to try it and then saying, well, wait, this isn't, even if it doesn't work, it's not going to cost me a ton of money is a light bulb.
Is it more like arbitration or mediation? Like, what are people going for more? Do you think?
Oh, God, I think probably now we're probably about 50-50.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think for a long period of time, we kind of had like mostly arbitrations and then we had a period of time where we were mostly mediations. Now we have, I think, a fairly good balance of those things because we have actually a fair amount of high volume clients who bring sort of repeat
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So, but I mean, interestingly, like, we have a large bank now that just does mediations. They're just trying to work stuff out. We've got some other like alternative lenders that just do arbitrations. They don't want to mediate anything. So I think we're seeing a little bit of equilibrium between the two sides of it, which is nice. I think that's where we want to be. We always encourage people to mediate. I think the biggest miss on mediation is doing it after you've been engaged in litigation for 3 years.
Mm.
Because people are pissed. They're entrenched. They've spent money. Like if you want to mediate up front before people are really pissed off. And I think it's misused in a lot of ways when people say, "Oh, I'm going to do it down the road." No, do
Yeah.
it now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've asked this. I'm sorry, but is it always commercial cases and like Olympic, or is it any like kind of personal disputes, or is it mostly commercial cases that are
It's
getting?
Yeah, it's mostly commercial stuff. I mean, I think we do have visions, maybe in the future of doing stuff that's a little bit more personal. Like you can picture like neighbor to neighbor disputes.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's a lot of moving pieces to how to get there. I think we have a vision of how we would get there.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, the reality is like even our rates, which are so significantly lower than you're still not going to want to pay that for, a $500 worth of damage when a tree falls on your house.
Right.
So once again, I think there is a way to actually make that all work. But for us right now, we need to get the business to a point where we can start thinking about those things. And we still have, so much that we want to do in the commercial space that it's not worth pondering that stuff right now.
Right. Right. So where do you see New Era ADR in like 5 to 10 years?
Oh, good question. Hopefully a very, very large business helping a lot of people. I mean, I think that's the most simplistic way to put it, but it's also the best way to put it. At the end of the day, our vision is always to get people in and out of litigation. So I think in 5 years, if people can say, I had a case with New Era and it wasn't that bad, that's success. And I think if we have people saying that, that's also a very large business.
Do you have like a part of the country that most people are coming from, like with disputes, or is it like a is there
Well,
like a or am I not supposed to ask that? You look at me
no, no,
like
no, no, no. You can
like
ask it. I will say this in a very the most diplomatic way I can say. California is the place that is the most litigious
okay, all right,
for a million different reasons. Um, and I'll leave it at that. So there's a lot of disputes in California. There are a lot of laws surrounding arbitration, mediation, whatever it may be in California. So I think I like to say whenever we get on a phone with a customer, a potential customer, um, it's usually about 2 to 3 minutes before California comes out of their mouth.
okay.
And
So
that's good.
no, go ahead. Sorry, Colin.
I was just going to say, and that's just because that's kind of the paradigm that's been set up out there. Um, it's neither good, bad, nor or indifferent. Quite frankly, it's probably good for us in some weird ways. But but if you ask me like where does stuff come from around the country, I mean, you kind of sit and say, well, California has like lots of issues for a million different reasons, and then everything else, even if you look at like the next most litigious state, would be a significant drop down.
Right, right. Is there a world where like attorneys like start like sending you cases for some reason? I mean, like
Yeah,
if yeah, okay, yeah, I didn't know if
yeah.
there
I
was
mean,
a connection there or like how that works.
it's we're problem solvers, right?
Yeah,
So that's what I always try to encourage. We don't look at attorneys as client like customers potential. We
right,
look at panel partners.
right,
Um, And the reality is like, come tell me what you're trying to solve for. Now, understanding we're an agnostic platform, we don't care who wins or loses. It's not within our purview. But if you come and tell me like I'm trying to fix this because I have enough disputes that I can't get them done in court,
right,
hey, that's a problem we can solve for. Like I always like to sit down and have conversations and say, well, what's the issue, right? And then let's see if we've got some solution, understanding that it's going to be fair to the other side too. But what's the solution to that? And let's think about that. Let's solve problems. I always like to say, I don't like to say, here's my box, you fit in it.
hmm
Like you come to me and I'm going to try and figure out a way to bend my box around what you need to do. And I think that's a differentiator for us too, whether it's pricing models, platforms, whatever it may be. We're trying to make sure that we're solving the problem for you and not saying, not to make the problem bigger, right? Which is great. I came to you guys, and now 3 years I'm still sitting in this process.
right.
You didn't. Not only did you not solve my problem, you made it worse.
Well, I mean, if there's a case with like a ton of different issues, right? Like you might be
Yep.
able to help like solve a few of them, and the
You got
rest
it.
just there might be no other way but like litigation for certain people or companies rather. So you might be able to come in and like take care of like the first or maybe even the last, depending on what it is.
Yeah, and just imagine if that process wasn't so painful.
Right,
So that's the other thing is like there's companies and individuals and whatever it may be that are out there settling things because they say, I don't want to go through this. So because they understand that how long it's going to take, how expensive it's going to be, and how painful it may be getting deposed. Um, so if it wasn't scary, like how many more disputes would people like actually take to this process and say win, lose, or draw? That's okay. But I'm not just going to quit because I can't deal with it. And that's
right.
what I think is important to us. Like to make this to the point where it's not painful enough to say I give up.
Yeah. So tell us about mental health and legal community. You're a mental health advocate. Like what concerns you about the legal community and what any challenges you want to speak to, just really anything that you want to say about mental health.
Yeah, I think yeah, this is something I'm hugely passionate about. I mean, I've had depression, anxiety, and all sorts of stuff. I think the legal community has done an extraordinarily poor job of dealing with this. I think there's this view, and if you read like Above the Law and things, you see these associates who are killing themselves, and I mean, it's really like appalling. And the reality is, I think that people view lawyers as drones, like they're robots. Just
Yeah.
get the job done. I don't care how long it takes. If you're going to spend every night at the firm, then fine. And I think a lot of firms have done a very poor job of policing that and saying get the hell, not saying get the hell out of here, go home. And like, here's the reality. Like my brother's an emergency room doctor. He actually deals with life and death. What we deal with is not life and death, but it's treated like it is. And
Right.
I think that's a horrible like way to look at these things. And I think we're burning people out. And once again, people view lawyers as robots. I think there has to be some humanity reinstalled in this profession and recognize that, God, some kid who comes out of law school at 24 years old and you're going to make them work, 3,000 hours a year. You're setting bad things up to happen.
Right.
And I think there has to be at some point some recognition by this profession that this is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think it happens. You have sort of you look back at like something happened and a firm will say, oh, it's terrible. We feel awful about
Right.
that. Well, you could have fucking prevented
Yeah,
it.
and then they just go on with their life, and
Right. And I hate to be that blunt about it, but don't tell me that you're looking at all these associates and don't have any idea that bad things are going on. Don't tell me that. That's not true. So for me, I really would like to see a world where people start having a little bit more humanity and saying, look, I want to do a good job. I want my clients to be happy. I want all the professional aspects of this to go well, but I also recognize you're a person. And I don't know if and when that's going to happen, but I sure
yeah,
hope it does.
yeah. That's great that you have such a strong stance. I think we just got to keep talking about it and humanizing the profession a little bit. So that's,
That's the other thing. I mean, you talk about why mental health is, you want to really want to talk about a pandemic. We're in a pandemic,
yeah,
and mental health is so much worse than COVID ever could have dreamt of being. And you say 56 million people in this country have, mental health issues. Bullshit. It's way higher, but nobody talks about it.
yeah,
So if nobody talks about it, it's all hidden. And then that's when people are hanging themselves. So you just nailed it on the head. If we talked about this more,
yeah,
if we destigmatized it, and if people saw people that they consider huge and strong and powerful and all this stuff saying, I've got problems too, that would be the start of the
yeah.
solution.
I think that's 100% right.
Yeah.
That's 100% right. When is mental health awareness? I forgot what month it is. Do we know?
May was Mental Health Awareness Week. There's like Suicide Prevention Week
Okay.
is in the
All
fall,
right.
and there's a bunch of different ones, but
Gotcha.
May was Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm fairly certain.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, is there anything we left out, Colin, that you want to touch on? Did I get to everything that we wanted to bring? Well, actually, one more question.
Yeah.
Empathy. Tell me about empathy. That's a core value. I really loved that when I read that because I consider myself sort of an empathetic person, and I want to know like what that means to you.
I mean, for me, it's being able to look at another person and understand that primarily, I think of it this way. You have no idea what's going on in somebody's life, right? You have no idea. So no matter how put together, how strong, how intelligent, how successful they may seem, you have no clue what's going on in their life.
True.
So to me, empathy is understanding that, never forgetting that, and saying, I am going to be kind and I'm going to do something to help, or I'm going to listen, and whatever it may be. And no matter how many people may think, well, you don't need to help that person. They're great. They're
Right.
killing it. Everything's great. To me, empathy is understanding, I don't know that. I have no clue whether or not they're great. And I don't really care. What I care about is that maybe they're not great. And so I can be empathetic by listening and doing all this because I'm not great all the time, right?
Right.
So to me, that's empathy is understanding like I'm not perfect. Things aren't always wonderful in my world. And I'm never going to look at somebody else and say, you've got it all squared away. So I don't give a shit. Like you should always give a shit. You should always listen. You have no idea what people are going through.
I love that. That's so important, man. That's so good. I'm so glad that you care so much. I think that that's like a core tenet of like lawyer stories too. It's just like that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us, man. And is there anything else regarding New Era that you wanted to touch on or?
Yeah. I mean, you killed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, it's been great.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love doing this. But yeah, just so thanks for coming on, man. Congrats with like you have a great career. I mean, you really do. You've done a lot of cool things. You should be so like super proud of everything you've accomplished, dude. Seriously, it's amazing stuff.
Well, I am proud isn't the right word, I guess. I'm happy for the things that have been accomplished and look forward to what's still
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah, I mean, you found something that you enjoy sort of building and doing, and that involves everything, like the law, like entrepreneurship, and I think it's wicked cool. It's important too.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on today, Colin. Collin is the founder and chairman of New Era ADR. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Collin, stay right there. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.